Hi, everybody. I believe you're all doing well today. So, in our previous conversation, we discussed some of the criteria that you could consider if you're looking for a study abroad host country, right? So, in today's video, I'll be walking you through one of the most important components or factors that you would likely always need to consider before you can select your choice of university and also the choice of country that you would want to study. And this important factor is funding. Of course, everybody wants to study abroad. Well, for the people who want to study abroad. However, there is always this confusion about what do I do when it comes to funding. Everyone is concerned, right, about funding because if you do not have funding, you do not have financial support in one way or the other, you have problems. Even at the early stage of securing a visa, it's going to be a problem to you because of insufficient funds. And also, while you're already studying in the host country, you always need financial support to sustainably keep you through that program. Whether it's a master's degree program, it's a PhD program, you need funding to do all of that. We all know that PhD programs, master's degree programs abroad in whatever field basically will always be expensive more than what you can afford in your country or your home country. So you always want to think about it. Oh, well, I really want to study in this country, but you're thinking about what it takes to be able to support yourself financially in that country. So in this video, I will be lecturing you through some of the important things that you can think about and some of the types of fundings and how you can get them through them. And I promise you that if you follow this video and understand clearly what I am talking about or the points that I'm making, it will be very important or useful for you to make informed decisions about your funding situation and about your study abroad process. So the first thing you think about when it comes to funding is you want to look at the program that you're going to. If you're going in for a master's degree program, you want to think about it. How long is my every master's degree program, right? Most master's degree programs are usually 2 years. However, there are countries that will allow you to complete your master's degree program in 1 year. For example, the UK. You can complete a master's degree program in the UK for 1 year. Whereas there are most countries that you would likely complete your master's degree program in normal time, which is 2 years. To complete a master's degree program, depending on what program it is or the field of study, also varies. And some of the countries would allow you to study at a moderate rate, meaning countries that have a very moderate uh, um, way of providing education to people. There are low cost countries and there are very high cost countries for education. So you want to think about it that way. For PhD programs are totally research programs, except for the professional ones, which I have talked about. The difference between a professional PhD and an academic PhD. But in most cases, people go in for academic PhD programs. And for you to go in for an academic PhD program, you need to have enough funding before you can be able to fund yourself through a PhD program, which uniquely is 5 years. And then some people could complete their degree programs within 3 years or 4 years. And people even take like 7 years to complete their degree programs, PhD. Some people do that. And to fund a PhD degree program, it requires a lot of money. It requires so much money to be able to fund that project or your PhD. And so people will resort to figuring out how they can do it. Now, the first type of funding that people would resort to doing is self funding. Self funding, when I say self funding, it could be in these ways. It could be you personally funding yourself through your academic degree, or it could be your sponsors. These sponsors could be your parents, it could be your friends, it could be your relatives, that's your aunts, uncles, it could be your brothers or sisters, whoever that steps in as your sponsor, right? You can basically categorize that as self funding. For most self-funded programs, people really don't want to get into self-funded programs a lot because getting into self-funded programs mean you have a lot of money that you have set aside to be able to uh, put together your studies or to pull you through that your academic degree, whether it's a 2 years degree program, you should be able to fund that degree. And the downside, I would say the downside of people who do self-funded programs is that you need to always showcase sustainability. You need to always showcase that you will not run out of that funding. Because if at some point you run out of funding during your academic degree, you resort to being a burden to your host country. And many governments, almost all governments, do not want for people to be depending on them to sustain them through their degree programs. So you want to establish that you have funding initially before they can approve you to study in their countries. So the downside of it, as I said, is that if you're unable to maintain that income, you're unable to maintain that financial source, then you're going to have issues and you will not be able to complete your degree, which means if you fall out of the program, then you're going out or you're going back home uh, from your host country, right? So the way I would advise or I would recommend someone to do this if you intend to do a self-funded program is that you look for schools that are very affordable or you consider um, countries that are also very affordable if you are in a self-funded programs because there are some countries that will allow you to study at a very moderate rate for international students. So if you are that person who is looking for a self-funded program, you want to consider countries like that because there are countries where you don't want to go to study on a self-funded program because it is draining. It will drain you financially because you don't have access to that money, enough money. The next thing I'll talk about is that if you're unable to do self-funding, that is yourself, your sponsors, whoever your sponsors could be, you could also consider getting into funding from organizations. There are very strong organizations out there that provide generous funding to support especially research related programs, whether it's master's degree or it's PhDs, right? You will have those organizations. They would always provide funding in the form of fellowships, in the form of grants. And this funding can always be enough. In most cases, is fully funded. And they will always be enough to provide you that financial support that you need throughout your program. Some of these organizations even will provide you funding that will span from your initial flight tickets from your home country to your host country and even your return tickets if you're going back home. They will fund all of that. They'll provide you your tuition, they'll cover your fees, they'll cover even your travel expenses for research related or academic related purposes. They can cover all of that and they even give you like a stipend or a salary that you can be earning at the end of the month for your financial support or living expenses. So they cover everything about your education. However, the downside of this funding from external organizations is that they are very highly competitive. Most of them are global grants. They are really very highly competitive because you have many people that are fighting to also secure that funding. So you have to be really strong, tough, competitive in one way or the other, not generally academically, like we would say, but in some aspects as well, but highly, they are really very competitive grants or source of funding. But when you secure this financial support, you are really absolutely fine. You really don't have issues. You have the only thing you do is that you spend most of your time focusing on your academics while they take care of the financial part. And almost everyone will always worry about their funding, right? The third one that we can talk about is securing internal funding from the school that you are attending. Most institutions will provide internal funding for you to support your academics. I mean, they will provide funding for your tuition, they'll provide funding for your fees, they'll provide funding for your living expenses and all of that generally. You have internal funding coming from the school that you are attending. The most exciting thing about internal funding is that they are always like the most secure way or the most valid way of you demonstrating your source of funding during your initial visa application process. It's really a very cool way, really super cool way of having yourself move past that stage of the visa application process that has to do with demonstrating proof of funds, which is also very technical though, but usually 98% is the best way to actually demonstrate your source of funding without getting to stress your entire family and make people go through a lot about thinking about funding and stuff like that, right? Another thing that you would think about internal funding is that some of internal funding will require you to do some sort of work before you can sustain that funding. And so you want to make sure that you are able to meet up with the requirements that are assigned to you regarding that funding, as well as some will require you to maintain a particular GPA while at school. So if you go below that GPA while at school, then you have problems. So you want to always constantly maintain that GPA so that you can consistently receive that funding throughout your project. So the most important thing is that if you are going in for a PhD project or program, sorry, you don't want to get into a PhD degree that you will be doing self-funding. It will drain you emotionally, physically, financially, everything. All right, because PhD degrees are really very expensive, and you don't want to go into a PhD degree where you will do some sort of self-funding. You want to go into a PhD degree where somebody will provide that funding for you while you worry or focus on your academics. And if this is your case, you want to explore funding from internal funding, or you also want to explore funding from external organizations. Um, that will fund you through fellowships, through grants, through scholarships, and then you can be able to do that. I hope that this video helps you, or this information helps you in making real informed decisions about what you want to do. Generally, like I said, PhD degree programs are really very expensive to fund, while master's degree programs are also expensive, but some of them could be affordable. You can be able to fund some of the master's degree programs irrespective of some of the financial costs that come with them. But for you to do that, you want to figure out which countries are very moderate and which programs are also very moderate, and then you can go with that. I hope that this video helps, and I hope that if you have questions still after watching this video, you can leave them in the comments, and I'll be able to answer those questions for you. And we have also posted some of the videos regarding how to identify good countries to study in, the things you need to do to apply for scholarships for people who have low GPAs. I've also made a video about how you can navigate your study abroad process if you have a low GPA. So for people who have low GPAs, it's not a problem. So you can check those videos or links to those videos in the description below, and they'll be very useful to help you figure out what you want to do. And until then, I am wishing you the best throughout the weekend, and I hope to see you again in my next video. Thank you for staying, and bye bye.